why nations are poor. And I want to repeat myself. Why nations are poor. I don't want to refer to any nation. We have rich countries, we have poor countries. And one of the banes of developing nations is that they lose their well-trained human capital to developed countries, because developed countries appreciate the use of the human capital and they always attract them with better incentives. But poor nations, some who have remained very poor for a long time, for self-inflicted reasons, no nation should be poor. You will discover that many of the developed countries are tapping the best of the brains from developing countries. Nobody wants to live a poor life. You don't want to come to this world and suffer and be poor. Your expectation is that you should attain some level of comfort. You should be able to pay your bills. And you work in a society that is interdependent with the world. But the world will not wait for any society to grow. The society must make a deliberate effort to grow. The society cannot grow because of land mass. You have nations with very large land mass that are very poor. Some of these land remain unutilized. And in a lot of cases, they lack basic elements that could make a nation to be prosperous. Gone are the days when nations are measured by the kind of war they fought and won. Nations go to battlefield, but not as we used to have in the olden days, when nations keep conquering nations by fighting physical war. Today, nations are fighting economic war. If you can take care of your citizens, if you can feed your nation, if you can utilize the resources in your nation, then you have won a major war. So, and you have nations that took these things seriously. Conversely, you have nations that remain perpetually poor. And I think being a poor country is by choice. It's by choice because you discover that those who have developed their nations didn't do it for any magical reasons. They did it because there was a conscious effort to develop the nation. Number one, there should be democracy in any country. There should be democracy. People should be allowed to choose their leaders. And if they are allowed to choose right leader, as everybody is rational, people will choose people who have been tested and you think they can do well. So leadership is a major issue in any nation. It's not science or technology. Here we mouse about the marvel of science and technology. We look at institutions and development in some countries, and we see it as if this is utopian. This is unimaginable. Science, technology can thrive in any environment with good leadership. So, nations should institute good leadership. You should have your A-team in leading the country. And that way, the country could be driven to great height. Secondly, there should be justice and rule of law. If there is no justice, nations cannot grow. If rule of law is not encouraged, nations cannot grow. So, every country must institute strong judicial process. You should invest in human capital. You should develop your human strength. When you have a situation where human capital is being wasted. It's not enough to put a lot of money on education. This is enough to train your people and use them. Some countries are fond of training good people and they lose them easily to another country. That is not fair enough to them because they have not provided an atmosphere that development can thrive. If development cannot thrive in your nation, then people will go. Then strong education, starting from primary school to secondary school to tertiary school to vocational school. Not everybody can go to tertiary institution in a nation. But everybody must be educated in basic language, in basic leadership, in basic science and technology. You have situations where you don't have good teachers to teach youth, especially in primary school, mathematics. And so you discover that even for them to do basic maths is difficult. And you cannot even be a trader if you don't have basic knowledge of mathematics. So you should invest in education. You should balance the investment in education. There should be no deception. In developing countries, many public institutions that are supposed to be strengthened have been weakened. Now you have more primary schools and secondary schools of high quality run by private individuals in developing countries. Many people, especially the poor, cannot afford the cost of this education. And those in public school, some of them don't have good buildings, some of them have good teachers who are not motivated, some of them don't have good teaching aid. And the most important aspect is the foundation of education. That is education in primary and secondary school. With that, anybody can succeed as he moves on because he knows the basic things to do. There should be no corruption. Zero tolerance to corruption should be what any nation should encourage. There should be zero tolerance to corruption. Lack of planning is another problem. People don't plan well in developing countries. If you plan well, you will develop. When they plan, they don't implement well. Then importantly, patriotism. People should be patriotic enough to want to run their country. If you say you are not corrupt, you should not just say you are not corrupt. You should not be corrupt. And if you have done all of this, individuals in all nations should imbibe certain things. People should be skilled. If you don't have quality human capital, the country cannot develop. People should be productive. They should engage in continuous training. They should work hard. They should have their own personal plans for development and implement them. They should be honest. They should be able to manage their time well. They should have focus. They should work with the right people. If you think you are right, the next person should be right. Be in the right company. You must be a risk taker. You should have self-confidence. You must have fear of God. You must do unto others what you want others to do unto you. If you don't develop your nation, nobody will develop your nation for you. That is certain. So you have to tell yourself that as you lay your bed, so shall you lie on it. In a lot of cases, we want a developed nation. We don't want to work at it. And that is unfortunate. We have to be able to develop and work at it.